I'm approaching my 1-year anniversary of being laid off from Big Law.
You're fired.
And also my 1-year anniversary of starting my own law firm shortly thereafter. And it's given me some time to reflect on the lessons I learned when I was in Big Law and what has really been useful for today as I now look to scale my own practice. If you don't know what Big Law is, it's in the name. It is a big law firm, but a particular type of big law firm. These firms typically have hundreds, if not thousands of attorneys and charge very high rates and pay very big salaries for new attorneys and experienced attorneys alike. And they're typically considered the most elite firms in the world, or at least they're handling typically very high value cases or working with very deep pocketed clients, aka many big corporations and big companies like that. So they tend to be pretty high quality and do a lot of quantity at the same time. But of course, some firms do things better than others, and that's no different within the big law realm as well. Anyways, I started my legal career after graduation in big law, and it was specifically doing commercial real estate work. I really wanted to do real estate law, so it was a really nice fit from that perspective. I was very happy that I not only was able to land the spot at a big law firm, but specifically in real estate. If it wasn't in real estate, first off, I don't even know if I would have gotten the job, but also it just wouldn't have been as aligned with where I was trying to go. At least that was my thinking at the time. Here's a typical big law arrangement for associates. They'll typically make something like $200,000 per year, at least as of now, and that number tends to tick up in time as the firms compete with each other and try to keep one-upping each other, but they all typically end up around that $200,000 mark for a new associate coming out of school. Some are a bit higher than that, some are a bit lower, but it's somewhere around that $200,000 mark before we talk about bonuses. In exchange for that salary, the associate will have to bill something like 2,000 hours in a given year, and that's billable hours. So these are hours that technically are being billed to clients. Whether they actually make it onto the bill is a different question, but it's billable work on client matters. So that doesn't mean you're just working 2,000 hours. You actually have to bill 2,000 hours. So you're working typically well beyond that total if you're actually going to meet that minimum hours requirement. And that's a minimum. If you go beyond that, typically there's some guaranteed bonus structure based on the hours you put in. But again, that's billable work, and that's really how the whole firm goes around. Of course, any law firm's trying to make money. Typically that's done through billable hours or whatever the fee is. That fee is often tied to the billable time of the attorneys. So it's not exactly a revolutionary model, but big law firms have made it work quite well for quite some time. Now, that typical salary range is often a very big financial boost for someone just starting their legal career. It definitely was for myself for the couple of years that I was in big law, but I don't want to talk too much about the financials here just because it's not too unique to any one career or one type of path in the law. You can make a lot of money in a lot of different ways, but for big law specifically, especially for new attorneys, I think by far the biggest benefit for the long haul is just the volume of work that you're doing. The thing about a big firm is one of the reasons it's big is because there's typically a lot of work to go around, and that gives associates a lot of opportunities to work on lots of different things. At least when things are going decently well for the firm, things ebb and flow like any business, but in a pretty normal big law relationship, there's going to be a lot of work to do, and there's going to be a lot of hours that you put into actual substantive legal work. And depending on the team and the firm you're at, maybe the work isn't that great in some cases. In my case, I really valued the experience I got because it was working on a lot of different real estate matters. I looked at a ton of leases, looked at a ton of purchase and sale documents, and a host of other things in just those couple of years when I was there. And just in my couple of years of big law, I probably worked closer to what would normally be maybe 2.5 or 3 years worth of work in a quote unquote normal arrangement as a new attorney, just because there were so many hours and so many things to work on, and you're spending most of your waking hours on that thing. The vast majority of your waking hours, frankly, if you're actually meeting your billable hours requirements. And I'm not going to pretend like there aren't drawbacks to that kind of arrangement. It really depends on what you're going for. But if you're going for simple legal training and learning about very niche areas in the law, or just looking at a bunch of different issues in the law, depending on what area you're in, you can really see a lot of stuff and get a lot of experience very quickly compared to someone who might be at a smaller firm that doesn't have as much work to go around. Not that you can't get great experience at a small firm, if not better experience, depending on that firm, but at least as kind of a general rule, you're probably going to have more work to do in a big law firm. But of course, there are exceptions to this rule. I don't want to pretend like that's universal. But either way, once you combine that volume of work with a nice salary to boot, even though you're working a ton of hours, so your take-home hourly rate isn't stellar, but for someone just starting their initial career in the law, it's still a really nice payday, and you're getting a lot of experience in the meantime. So it really is a nice arrangement for someone who's just learning about the law. And at big law firms, there should be a pretty high concentration of experienced partners as well, who have been doing this for a really long time, can charge really high rates because they're really good at what they do. So you can learn from those folks as well. I know I certainly did. And being surrounded with people like that is definitely going to have an effect on your own work product and making sure that it is really good or is really up to standards or whatever's supposed to happen in that area of the law. Of course, I'm sure you could find exceptions where a particular team at a particular firm is really bad and you didn't learn anything from them. But at least in my case, and I think in the case of many big law associates, there's plenty of people to learn from and lots of work to do that you can learn from. But bringing us back to today, where I'm now running my own law firm with its own team, I'm really grateful for the experience I got in big law, not only for the volume of hours and experience I got during my years there, but also for seeing the operation as it was, being on the inside of what is a successful law firm and one that has lasted for a long time, hearing about the stories of how the firm acquired other firms, for example, and also what worked for partners in their individual practices within the greater firm. There was lots to learn there, and that perspective has been helpful as I look to grow my own law business. There are lots of things that I wouldn't like to do the same, but there are plenty of others that could make quite a bit of sense in our own firm, and we're trying those things out. It also makes it easier to identify who a great attorney might be because I worked around great attorneys. So the more I can see what great attorneys look like, easier it becomes to identify great attorneys for my firm. Anyways, that's just some of my biased perspective, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Whatever the case, I always think there's a lot to learn from operations that have scaled like so many big law firms have. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future ones, and I'll see you in the next one.